Good evening and welcome to the Raleigh Municipal Lighting Plant monthly meeting. And just a reminder that this meeting is going to be audio and video recorded digitally. And our first item agenda, actually, let me just read the date in. It's April 9th, 2014. So we've got that on the tape. Citizens query from 7 p.m. to 7:10 p.m. And our next item agenda will be review and accept minutes from the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to read them?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any errors or corrections?
Fine, me.
Hearing none, I'll accept the motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to accept the minutes as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item number 3 on the agenda, update on cost of service rate study.
Just wanted to update you really quickly on the cost of service rate study that we had awarded to Bruce Lymaster. We've had a meeting with him originally about 3 weeks ago, and we're in the data collection stage at this moment. In talking to him, the cost of service study is progressing smoothly.
Good.
He said actually more smoothly than he anticipated.
Oh, no kidding. Wow,
Yeah,
that's great.
So that is good. We have a meeting scheduled with him next, actually it's not next week, it's the following Tuesday, to meet with him on the second stage of the cost of service study. More data collection, power supply stuff, so that he can get all his information together. And move forward with the next stage of the I keep wanting to say audit, cost of service
Cost of
study.
service. Very good.
Yeah, I anticipate being complete towards the end of May, beginning of June, and we'll have a complete cut, and then we'll be able to look at that and decide what we want to do beyond that with the rates.
Exactly. We'll know exactly where we stand at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be good. That'll be very good.
So I will keep you up to date on what's going on if we need any input, or we are going to need input from the commissioners, and Bruce did say he would like to come to at least one meeting
Oh, good.
to talk about when the audit is when the cost
We
of
know.
service study is almost complete, so that he has some input from the commissioners as to rate design, and he would like to do that. So when that comes closer, I can work out a time to meet with him
Sure.
and have him come to a
Yep,
commissioners
good.
meeting.
That'll be great. Okay, any other questions? Or
No.
okay, well, that sounds very good, Dan. It's going to be good when it's finished.
Mhm.
Now that you were talking audits, I think we ought to go to item
I
number
think
4.
we're gonna go with the audit.
Yeah, right.
It's been on my mind for a while now.
The 2013 draft audit.
And I will pass out a copy of the management letter and the audit. Do you have a copy? Did you print it? Okay. There's a copy. That's one.
Thank you.
Give you a copy, Ken? You have it. Eric, do you want one to follow on? You have one? I guess what I'd like to do is, I know I had emailed it to you, so you could just kind of look at it.
Yep. And just, if you will, let me ask one question.
Sure.
On page 11,
The management letter or the audit?
the audit itself.
Okay.
And I think I figured out what it means, but I'm not quite sure. I just wanted to verify it. At the last sentence, under item number 2, it says the plant also distinguishes between operating and. It just kind of ends there without a period. So you go to page 12, and
And non-operating revenues and expenses.
yeah, I thought that might be it, but you don't generally put and.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
It
kind of
actually should be and, I think, instead of and.
right. I agree. I looked at D and it says basic accounting continued, and then you look at the next line and it's italics and it's number 2, basic accounting continued.
And no, yeah.
Okay.
So then I kind of figured out that it was probably non-operating was the next word, but I just wanted to verify that.
I will talk to Bill. This is the draft, so that we can still, talk to him about any kind of correction that we want to make.
Okay, well, it depends on what he was trying to say. That's, let him make that decision. So, for the most part, I kind of read it rather quickly, but
Yeah,
things seem to be in really good.
I would say that you have time to review it, take a good look at the audit itself. There is a little bit of differences between the actual audit and the actual income statement that I had, or our final numbers that I handed to you last meeting. And you know, Bob, as well as I do, that when the auditor does his numbers, they vary somewhat from the way the accounting does their numbers.
Right.
The way they calculate different accrued expenses and whatnot. The accountant treats them in different ways than the auditor does. So we'll have a difference between the audited numbers
And
and.
it depends on when you do it and when the money comes in, particularly at the end of the year where we're on a calendar year.
Mhm.
And the town itself is on a physical year, so sometimes those numbers don't quite line up as they should, but
Right.
it's typically you can find it, and get it straightened out, so.
But the auditor did mention that, in looking at both sets of numbers, he agrees, everybody agrees now. I mean, we
Yeah.
had some issues in closing the year out that
Mhm.
we had fixed.
Yep.
So the auditor and the accountant have come to an agreement.
Under an agreement
Yeah,
as to
so
what was
we're
going
pretty-
on. That's
yeah,
great, that's
yeah.
great, Dan. I noticed we were down a little bit in revenue, but because we had lowered the rates a little bit,
Right.
so that was, that's not a bad thing. It
No.
really isn't.
No, and generally, when you make too much money, you have to give it back to the customers anyway, so, and
Mhm.
that's basically what we did last year.
Yep.
With dropping the PPA charge by, I think it was $0.015, we actually gave that money back to the customers last year.
So that's good.
If you want, we can just go over the management letter real quick.
Sure.
It's kind of the, what we need to be concerned about. The audit, I mean, the numbers are the numbers, and you can review that at your leisure. And any questions that you may have, you can, forward me an email and we can take a look at it. If you want, if the first 2 pages are kind of normal language. It's
Yeah.
just a letter, and the second page is just an overview of the operating results. And page 2 on the bottom, control deficiencies, is kind of, we can go over the next couple of pages. It kind of gives you the auditor's findings as far as how we may or may not improve the operation.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll start at accounts payable. I think that's the first one that he's noted under control deficiencies. And as he says in the paragraph, the plant currently records its expenses on a cash basis. Non-power expenses are recorded on a cash basis rather than recorded when incurred, accrual basis, which is required by GAAP. He says we should consider recording expenses on an accrual basis, but it is not practical with the accounting software that we have.
Right.
So that is something that he will note in the audit, and it's really nothing we can do about it with the accounting system that we have.
Yeah, GAP and the DPU's accounting system tend to get a little out of sync once in a while.
They do, and GAAP, the DPU accounting system, or FERC, the accounting numbers have not changed since 1962, maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
The DPU, so they haven't changed. The GAAP is
Yeah.
changing, not constantly, but
Well,
they do change.
it's almost
and
on a
review.
yearly basis, they come up with something new
Mhm.
each time, so.
So, and so on the next one, the work order job cost system documentation. I'll let you review that for a minute before we talk about it.
As far as trying to touch the manager's time, they've been doing that since 1960 almost.
The, what is,
Just, they talk about the first one, the current job order,
Mm-hmm.
and they mention the crew time is off, but plant manager's time is not captured.
right, the plant manager and the office staff help is really not accounted for as per gap.
Right.
That's something that,
But they've been talking about that for years.
yeah, yeah.
They really have. I mean, I used to just say, well, he needed to say something. So, find something wrong, you know?
There is a couple of things in that C2 that I would like to mention, and one of them is the inventory part of it. Not so much the work order management part, but the inventory part. Right now, we do all the inventory by hand with spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Northern Data does have an inventory module that we can actually incorporate into our billing system. And I'm going to look into that, and I think that would alleviate this part of his
Concern?
his concern in the audit. And it would actually make us more efficient in the office because the inventory system would tie to the billing so that when Eric, if he went out to bill a customer, he could pull the items from the inventory and actually could build the bill that way
Yeah.
rather than, looking at a spreadsheet over here.
Exactly.
And then, so I mean, it's,
And it's bound to be, a number of things that keep the inventory from balancing completely. I mean, they ship you a box of 100 widgets. Well, how do we know there's 100 widgets in there? Maybe there's only 99 or 98 or something,
right.
So that automatically throws it off. And particularly in storm restoration, I mean, you're using parts, and a lot of times you don't keep track of them. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got more important things to do. First, trying to stay alive out there in the elements,
in the
for one
elements,
thing.
yeah.
And then just trying to keep track of everything, so get the people back on as soon as you can. So things kind of get shuffled around and get lost once in a while. So,
I would say that the guys do a really nice job because they have, when they turn in their work order, there's a sheet attached. There's a sheet attached to the back of the work order
yeah,
that has all the inventory items that they used on that job.
right.
And they are very, very good about
Check
every,
them off.
checking off the inventory items that they used
I know,
on
I used to
every
keep a little
job.
notebook in my pocket when I was the foreman, and we'd finish up the job, and I'd just sit down and try and write it all down before I left the site.
Yeah. No, the guys are really good about any stock they take off the truck, they note it on that sheet when they turn in their time sheet for the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
So they do a nice job with that.
That's good.
But I think,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think what we'll do is Eric, Mark, and myself will go over to Middleton because Middleton has this inventory software,
Oh,
and they do use Northern Data. So what I want to do is pay a visit to Mark Kelly and kind of see and talk to Leah's the stock person there. So I'll talk to her
Yeah.
about how it all
And
works.
Mark
and
is still around over there?
Mark's still there, yeah.
Wow.
But I would like to talk to her and him about how the software works. Had any problems, and just to get a feel for if it's worth it or not.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that'd be good.
And that will alleviate, I think, part of his concern in the audit.
Dan, could you expand a little bit on the retirement data should be generated throughout the year, on the audit there?
Yeah, what happens right now is, per DPU, we're supposed to retire, for the DPU report, we have accumulated depreciation throughout the year. At the end of the year, anything that was put into that or retired from that plan account should be taken off that depreciation amount. And what we do is at the end of the year, we count the number of poles that we retired, the number
Right.
of transformers, streetlights, meters, things like that. And we record that on the DPU report as retired items, and it goes against that plan account for the depreciation. Well, I think, you know, and going back to what I was just saying about the inventory system, I think that will help as well in
Okay.
us, not only with inventory, but also keeping track of things that we've actually retired.
Okay.
So, like, for instance, the guys are gonna start pulling old poles that the telephone company has transferred. Instead of waiting to the end of the year to come up with a count for the retirement, we should do it actually monthly and have the accountant on a monthly basis do that retirement against that depreciation account
Add it to the account, yeah.
and add it to the account rather than, I think that's what Bill's saying, and rather than wait until the end of the year and recording a much larger number at the end of the year rather than doing it smaller numbers
Small
throughout
amounts
the
at a
year.
time, yeah.
I didn't see in the report, they mentioned salvage and scrap
In the
in
in the management letter?
audit.
Oh, in the audit? No.
That mentioned- Okay.
No.
Would that be in there?
No, I don't think so. It should show up in the retirement.
In the retirement?
Okay,
Yes,
you
it'll
take, you
show
take
up in
down
the
wire,
retirement.
and depending on when it was put in, you'd have to calculate a cost, just the
Okay.
number of feet and the cost, and that's the retirement figure.
Okay.
But,
Yeah. Just so you know, Bob, when we do a job, let's say we set a pole, when we put that into depreciation, it's cost installed.
Okay.
So it's labor, it's everything
Mhm.
that we use to install that part of our plant. So when we do at the end of the year, when we write that off, it's also cost installed. So we take that off as well. What's difficult is some of this equipment's been in service since
1910.
1910.
Right.
So
you get-
trying to come up with a cost installed is, or even a cost of the pole when it was put in 1930s.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
we have to get a little creative as far as what that actual value is. I mean, it's been fully depreciated for sure.
I
Oh,
used to
yeah.
have some old catalogs over there. Pettingill and things like that,
Oh,
names
boy.
out of Boston. And for the big things, like transformers,
Yeah.
meters,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'd look it up in the catalog and use that number. I don't know if they're still there or not. but
No, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
They probably aren't, but
No, no, I don't think so.
I kept them hid away in the cabinet so I could get them out at the end of the year and figure out what the retirement cost was.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all done with the inventory and,
Yep.
okay.
Anything else before we move on to the next one?
No.
The next one is the customer accounts receivable, C3. That's pretty self-explanatory. As you can tell, since 2012, well, it's been rising since 2009. And it is, rates are getting higher. We're not in a recession anymore, but people are struggling. So
Mhm.
it's normal to see our accounts receivable increase. We are working diligently to recover any revenue that we can from customers. The DPU has continually asked us to expand the moratorium, so it's a little more difficult for us to collect because they're expanding it by almost a month on either side.
Yeah, and particularly this time of year, right at the end of the year, because it goes into effect now. Does it go into
Right.
November or even before that?
April.
October?
October to April.
October to April.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the law said March.
It does say March still, but every year we get a letter from the DPU
Oh, yeah,
asking
and
us
it's been
to-
there since year one.
Yeah.
They've always sent that letter out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you kind of really gotta kind of go along with what they're trying to get done. But
Mhm.
it does creep up there on you, and like I say, particularly at the end of the year, it gets there because you really don't have any recourse at all.
Right. And we have been working diligently trying to get that number down. When I started, we started doing liens again. We've recovered a lot of that lost revenue through the lien process,
Yeah.
which we weren't doing before. Also, that number dropped since last year because I've been watching the termination notices and, just seeing of where we are with customers and
Yeah.
keeping better track of, making sure that we're collecting where we should. There are, no, I'm not gonna say that on TV. But, there is.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. But,
I mean, and that happens everywhere.
Yeah,
really
it does.
It's something you really can't control all that much. It is basically a necessity, and we have
Mhm.
to supply it. And as you say, just do the best we can.
Yeah, and I am working on it, so just to let you know that, you know, we'll keep plugging away on it. Comments, questions on that one? C4. I think we had talked about that in the past. For a risk assessment audit, there was a company that came in that did the actual audit of the scrap wire. I've called the gentleman 6 times, and he's not calling me back.
Oh, really? Powers and Sullivan?
Yeah. So what I'm going to try and do is,
This time of year, he's pretty busy.
Yeah.
Because they do a lot of communities. They actually do the town of Rowley's audit,
okay.
with the selectmen's audit for the whole town, and treasurer's audit, so. And I know they were in here about a month ago. So,
I think I saw it.
yeah, so.
But I've tried repeatedly, you know, called him, left messages, and I haven't got anywhere with him.
Hmm.
So what I'd like to do is move on and find somebody to, because the auditor did mention that, you know, it's something that we should do every once in a while, to do a risk assessment and
Yes.
see where we're at as
And
far
I
as.
think they did that as a favor to the Board of Selectmen at that time.
Okay.
The Selectmen had asked for that. so,
Okay.
When they did it
That was
before.
3 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, 3
Yeah.
years ago.
Mhm. So I'd probably, you know, ask around to see, you know, who I can find to do this type of audit,
Mhm.
so I'm sure it'll be just a CPA, and there is a guy in Georgetown that the Georgetown Light Department uses for an accountant that I could probably call him and see,
Yeah,
and see what I can get out of him.
okay.
The archiving of reports, which is C5, that's, I don't know, I'll let you read it, and you can give me your opinion on it.
That's always been an issue. And you're not gonna get a good answer out of me, because I'm too old-fashioned. I gotta have it in front of me written down on something.
Well, you know, yeah, I mean, it's probably doable, and we do back up everything right now on the server that we have in the office. Whether or not that server is capable of the increased load on it, because we do generate a lot of paper, and that would be a lot of data.
Yeah,
I don't know if the backup system would be hit, so it would be, probably if we had to buy a new server, it could be expensive if we wanted to go that route or not, but, I mean, I'm willing to go that route, I just, you know, would like maybe some input from the, you know, commissioner this. Do you wanna spend the money to go that route, or do you wanna just,
well, I think we can certainly look at it.
okay,
And I think based on what the rate study comes back at, would be the time to then kind of look at this maybe and say, what can we do and what's it gonna cost? And depending on what we have to do with the rates to make that work, would be a good move.
okay. I mean, it probably would save us money in the long run, because we're not gonna be generating so much paper.
Mhm.
We do generate,
We have cut it in half with the new printer.
with the new printer, we did cut it in half, because,
But see, Dan, what we're doing is you can't look at it as costing us money. I mean, it's like the people at the post office. They throw all that junk mail away, and then they complain about getting junk mail. And I said, look, this junk mail keeps the economy going. You gotta hire a guy to print it. You gotta have somebody that gets the paper, makes the paper for you to make it work. The post office gets the postage when it gets mailed. You throw it in the rubbish, the junk man now is gonna making a living
Yeah.
because he's throwing it away.
yep.
You're right, Bob.
So, I mean, you gotta have a positive attitude. You
Yeah.
really do. You know, I mean, it's keeping people with
Yeah,
jobs,
it
giving
is.
people jobs.
It
So,
is.
hey, you know, I just happily throw mine in the rubbish barrel.
It's part of the process.
Exactly. Yeah, keep people working. That's what it's all about.
So I'll look into that, just to see what's involved, you know, how much it might cost, maybe some, you know.
And there may certainly be some of the process that we do that would be suitable for this electronic
Mhm.
with the same server or something like that, depending on how much we generate as far as data goes, how much data we generate.
Okay,
So it's hopefully it'll work out.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll look into that. C6, was there anything else on that one?
No.
C6 is segregation of duties on the cash receipts. Bill puts this in the audit. He's put it in the management letter for the past 2 years, as far as I know. I don't know if it was in there before that or not. It's a difficult item for us because we have such a small office. Right now, we just have Eric and Sandra in the office and myself. So it's difficult without, because they both have their duties to do.
Exactly.
Sandra takes care of most of the cash receipts part of it, takes care of all of the posting to the customers' accounts as far as the checks and the cash go. She does go to the bank every day. To change that, it would be difficult without taking away from Eric's job.
Mhm.
And, so, I mean, it's feasible that we can, give separate some of the duties, but I don't know if I'd have to just kind of investigate it to see how it would work or not, whether it does or not. I mean,
Right.
it seems to work fine the way it is right now. It's just when the auditor looks at that, he sees one person in control of,
Yeah, and they get very nervous about that.
yeah,
I know when we first put that cash drawer in there, the auditor I had at that time said he wanted one person taking the money and putting it in the drawer, and another person taking the money out of the drawer and counting it. So it's,
yeah.
and you try to do that, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it just doesn't work because somebody's out or doing something
Right.
else. So
Right.
you have to do what you can do to try to keep it separated. But
Mhm.
and like you say, in a small office, it's very difficult.
What I did do is have both Eric and Sandra doing a daily count sheet of the cash drawer.
Mhm.
So the cash drawer is balanced every single night and
Yeah.
actually counted by one and signed off by the other, so that there is a record of the cash drawer, how much is in the cash drawer every single night, and it's actually been counted and signed off
Signed
on.
off on. That's
So
a
I
good
did
idea.
start doing that, so
Yeah.
that's part of the checks and balances that I think the auditor wants to see, but
Yeah.
it's not quite to the extreme that I think he wants to get there, so.
Right.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's always a good idea.
Yeah.
That protects the employees as well.
Absolutely, that's, yeah.
Okay.
Any business would do that, with any kind of cash.
Yeah.
What's that, I'm
Any,
sorry?
any kind of a business that has cash like that, cash business would have protections like that in one place.
Right.
So it's smart.
Sorry, I just want to write something down before I forget. Was there anything else on the segregation of duties? C6 is continued. C7 is year-end inventory. I think we kind of touched on that already. I don't think we need to go over that again.
Yep.
And I think you all know what GASB 45 is.
Oh, yeah.
Especially being selectmen.
Do we have a,
We do have the language in place to establish the actual OPEB fund. We had voted on that a few meetings ago.
yeah,
It's just a matter of putting the money in it.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is take some money either from stabilization or depreciation and find out contact the legal just to make sure if it's a use that we can. or
Use that
some-
money for,
Yeah, that
yeah.
we can use that money for that. And just to get the fund started. And I think one of the things that we should talk to Bruce Lymaster about with the cost of service study is somehow factoring in this OPEB into that so that we have an idea of how much money we need to put into that fund
Yeah.
Mhm.
and, you know, make sure that the rates cover that, because this is something that, well, as you know, you don't have to fund it right now, but you are going to have to fund it.
Eventually we'll
Yeah.
catch up with you. So you've got to actually show some sort of a trying to get it done.
Right now, we just have it on our balance sheet as in a deferred expense, but it will come to the point where, like you said, you have to fund it.
It's easy to fund it in short deposits rather than large deposits.
Right,
Mhm.
right. So I think that might be a good, you know, a question for Bruce
Yeah.
when we meet with him, just to kind of make sure we need to build that into our rate structure, that cost.
Okay.
And the last one is just, he's just talking about other GASB statements that do and may or may not affect us.
Okay. Is there any other discussion or questions or
No?
comments on the draft audit? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the May meeting date.
I have a conflict with the May meeting date, and I just wanted to make the commissioners aware of that. I'd like to reschedule if possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'd scheduled for the following Wednesday, but it's my anniversary. I don't know if my wife would be happy if I left the house that night, so.
I think you should protect yourself.
We could go to the prior, to the 7th, if you'd like, the 7th of May for the commissioners' meeting.
Let's see what we
It
got
shouldn't be too bad, because it's 2 days after
after town meeting.
town
Yeah.
meeting, so the craziness goes down.
Okay, I mean, we don't have to have it on
Actually.
Wednesday. I mean, it can be,
No, I think that's fine with me. How
Yeah,
about
that-
you?
That should work. Yeah.
Ken?
May 7th would be all right? I mean, I know your surgery is,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll give it a shot, yeah.
okay, all
We'll
right,
go for it.
okay. I'll send you an email out with the date, just to
Sounds good.
confirm everything. Also, in talking about the May meeting, I'd like to start negotiations with myself and the employees at the May meeting. Maybe kind of talk about what we want to do in the May meeting, and then have a final discussion in the June meeting. So that way, when July comes along, we're ready to, for the final increase,
Move
for
forward,
the increase, yeah.
Okay. And item number 6,
On to the fun stuff.
power supply contract and expenses.
I just want to briefly talk to the commissioners about where we are with our power contract. We're in the second year of our 3-year contract, which does expire at the end of next
Mhm.
year.
Next year.
We are looking into, right now, having a master agreement, negotiating a master agreement. What a master agreement is, it's basically it's a set of documents that you negotiate with power suppliers, and it's fixed. So what happens, and it's a widely accepted agreement that most power suppliers use. So what that does for us is it eliminates a lot of the negotiations and legal wrangling when you go to negotiate an individual purchase power agreement. You already have the agreement in place. It lasts longer. It's not in every 3 years. It may be in every 5 years. We have to kind of freshen up the terms of the agreement, but it's not a one-off agreement where every time you negotiate with a supplier, you have to go through the process involving legal, and it does get expensive. Also, what a master agreement does for you, it enables you to buy power tomorrow. So if, like right now, if we wanted to go out buy power tomorrow, we couldn't. We have to go through the RFP process, get
Mhm.
prices,
Yeah.
negotiate a contract with our legal, with their legal, go through the edits. It may take 2 months to, to get to the end result.
Yeah.
With a master agreement, if that master agreement is in place, what I can do is I can call a supplier tomorrow and say, I need a megawatt around the clock, starting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Okay, here you go, done. You just go through the prices, sign a confirm, and you're done. So it makes it a lot more flexible in that regard for power supply.
Mhm.
And where that would come into play is if we had a large commercial customer all of a sudden come into town. And he was in around-the-clock load, which would be great for us. It would be
Exactly.
awesome for us.
Keep
I
that
could
load factor
actually,
level.
yeah,
Mm.
I could actually go out to the market and say, all right, I want 1 megawatt of power around the clock, and I would be able to do that in very short notice. A regular power supply contract, you can't do that.
Mhm.
So there's a few of us getting together. I believe it's Rowley, Georgetown, Groveland, Middleton. We're all going to get together to kind of share in the cost and negotiate with a few power suppliers master agreements so that we
Now,
can have that agreement in
Are we doing
place.
this individually as a group, or are we doing it through Energy New England or something like that? or-
It's a group of us municipals that are negotiating with one lawyer to do the master agreements.
Mhm.
E&E will be involved a little bit
Okay.
on the power supply side of it.
Yeah,
It will be mostly through the lawyer to get it done initially, and then once the agreement's done and signed, negotiated, it's done.
Just kind of coast along after
You
that.
coast along after that, yeah.
It sounds like an
So
intriguing way to do it.
The advantageous part is that you go and kind of like spot purchase of power.
You can.
Like that, is that what we're,
It is, you can do that, but I think what the main concern on my part is legal fees aren't getting any cheaper.
mm-hmm,
And if we negotiate this master agreement now,
mm-hmm,
what that will do for us is we will not have to do this over and over every time our power supply contract comes up. So it will save us in the long run. Right now, our lawyers charge us about $350 an hour.
okay.
So, I mean, a power supply contract could take you a couple of weeks to do, on and off.
Right,
So, I mean, that does get expensive.
mm-hmm,
So I think we'll have those savings, and it'll make us more flexible. I think the most benefit is the savings, and the other benefit would be, more flexibility.
Flexibility, yeah.
what would be the disadvantage to it? Any?
You may limit yourself to a certain amount of suppliers, because you could basically, the advantageous part is to deal with a number of suppliers if you have master agreements with them.
Right,
The disadvantage is if you don't have a master agreement with those suppliers, you may lock somebody out of the negotiation part of it.
A supplier that would be
That
there, that
may
you
or
might
may-
be able to use. If they're not on the agreement, then you wouldn't be able to talk to them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Which, from what we've seen in the lawyer that we're using, a number of municipalities have master agreements in place, and the power suppliers that they use are generally to give them the best pricing. So, I mean, we're gonna start off with 2 this year, and to spread the cost out, we may do another 2 next year to have 4, and then see how that goes, and then we can always do more. We could have 6 of them if we wanted to. I mean, generally, if we do an RFP for power purchasing, you're getting maybe 4 or 5 quotes, depending on what you're asking for
Mhm.
for your contract. So I think having, 4 or 5 master agreements is probably all you would need anyway,
mm-hmm,
and I don't think you would lock anybody out. And if there were changes, if a new power supplier came up that was really giving good deals, you can always negotiate the master agreement with them.
okay,
Sounds intriguing.
yeah, it does.
So we're planning on starting that process fairly quickly, because we are getting to the point where we want to start locking in some power for 2017 going forward. Actually, 16, I'm sorry. and going forward.
Very good.
Better to be ahead of the game than behind.
Yes, it's always better to be ahead.
And right now, the 2017 prices are looking fairly reasonable. They're running about 5.5 cents around the clock, so that's
Wow.
not so bad. If we can get that, we'll have to go through the process to see what the prices are when we come back.
Oh,
when they go
damn.
back.
In 1910, you were buying power from Ipswich, 6 cents a kilowatt hour,
In 1910?
1910, and selling it for 16 cents.
Wow.
Of course, we only used 8,000 kilowatts for the whole year,
Hmm.
but that's what the prices were back then. So, I mean,
That was a lot of money.
a huge amount of money
Yeah.
compared to today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you stop and think about that. Here we are today doing basically the same thing and at a much cheaper rate.
Yeah.
It really is cheaper. And
Well,
it's,
weekly wage was about $20 a week then.
well, it's probably $20 a month or something. No, a lot of people didn't make much money.
Yeah.
In 1909, I've got a postcard from, it was actually a picture of Seaview Nursing Home, which was the
Mhm.
Fenno estate. And on the back of it, there's a little note, and it says, "I never thought I'd see the day a man could make a penny a minute."
Wow.
It was one of the masons laying brick.
Wow.
Was getting 60 cents an hour. I mean, that brings it right into perspective. It really does. It really does. So, okay.
But, sorry, also on that,
Yeah.
the expense side of it, power's not getting any cheaper. So what I would like to do is establish, well, let me start over. We have a prepayment account at Energy New England right now that we use to pay all our ISO bills and our monthly bills for our power supply contracts.
Mhm.
In the near future, probably 2015, 16, 17, the prices in wholesale and for forward capacity market prices are going to go high, extremely high. So what I propose to do is start increasing our prepayment account now,
Mhm.
say in the order of $10,000 to $15,000 a month. And what that'll enable us to do is when those expensive periods come, we already have the money in the prepayment account to
Mhm.
cover our expenses. And what I'm trying to avoid is the sticker shock when we get to that point and all of a sudden our fund is deficient, we don't have the money to cover the
Mhm.
bills. And at that time transferring $250,500 into the fund at that point. What I'd like to do is start putting that money in there now in order to have the money in there when the time
When the
comes.
time comes for it.
Rather than, taking a huge amount of out of depreciation or stabilization
So you're
account.
saying you expect power prices to go up
Much higher,
much higher?
much higher. Well, right now, in the forward capacity market, for instance,
Mhm.
the prices are running $3 to $4 a kilowatt month. In the forward capacity market in 16 and 17, when the footprint power plant is finished in Salem,
Mhm.
it's going to go to $15 a kilowatt a month.
Wow.
So,
Mhm.
and that's what ISO has agreed to pay footprint power for and that includes the whole NEMA load zone.
Mhm.
So anybody in that zone will have to pay that increased cost,
Mhm.
which is us. So, in order for us to get to that point, we need to look at that and say, all right, we're gonna need X dollars in that year, so we need to start.
Okay, so this is not really because of energy prices, this is more to do with this plant coming online.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
What we see generally in the wintertime, we see a lot of increased costs right now because the wholesale switch to gas
Mhm.
as the heating system, this year is, I think, an exception, but it was a lot longer
Mhm.
heating season. So the price of natural gas stayed higher longer, which affects the price of power now. It didn't used to, but now that the ISO New England load zone is probably 60 to 70% gas, natural gas fired power plants now, with all the retirements, with the nuclear, with Pilgrim going down and Salem Harbor going down, and I think Brayton Point's going to go down next year. The more natural gas plants that are built, the more it strains the system,
The gas supply.
the gas supply system, because in the wintertime, that gas is not gonna go to power supply, it's gonna go to heating, because they have firm contracts to supply the people for heating. You'd better rather have heat than electricity, but most people would anyway. So what happens is, there's a shortage of gas in the wintertime, so the price increases dramatically, which increases the cost for the power put into the grid. So everybody has to pay that high cost. The 6 New England states have gotten together and say, all right, we had enough, we need to do something to correct this. So they want to build new pipelines coming into Massachusetts from either Maine or from New York, mostly from the I can't say that, the shale down in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
They want to bring shale gas into this area, which is cheap, because New York's price over the winter, I can't remember what it was. I think it was like $3 or something. I think our area is like $23. It's an insane amount of difference. So they want to bring that gas into New England.
They still bring the LNG into Everett and
No, they haven't, because they can get a better price,
Get a price.
elsewhere.
domestically.
No, I mean, the LNG used to come in because we had a market for it here.
Right.
Now, their market is elsewhere. Europe, China, all the tankers are going overseas
Going
because
overseas.
they're paying inflated
paying
prices.
better,
Right, they're paying better. So we can't get the tankers to come into the ports. Actually, they're talking about, changing those to export, not import ports anymore.
Really.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, if the shale gas gets to this
I
point,
guess at that point they'll be able to export
they'll
it.
be able to export it. So,
Yeah.
which is another whole story. But
What a reverse, huh? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I know Ipswich, when they used to generate, they would generate with gas in the summer, and then they would have to generate, because the gas was shut on, they'd take them off the line on gas in the wintertime, and they'd have to generate with oil,
Mm-hmm.
fuel oil, so, and it was that way for years. They had a contract with Havel Gas at the time, and they would be shut off during the wintertime
Mm-hmm.
as far as using gas.
So we have to figure out a way to, not only to help pay, but to maybe
Mhm.
do some generating ourselves. I mean, it's a big step for us. Maybe some small 2-megawatt generators down at the sub. I don't know. I mean, that's something that's been thrown around. That'd be a long process for us, and we're a small utility, but we also got to look at the cost that we're going to
Right.
have to pay, to the ISO New England for the generator.
How many megawatts do we use for the town?
A day or a year?
A day.
A day? It's usually, the average is probably 5 or 6 an hour. So times 24 hours, because it's high in the during the day and it gets lower at night. So I'd say the average is about 5 megawatts an hour. So times 24 hours.
So two
So
two
about 125.
two 2-megawatt gas turbines. That's what you're looking at, right?
Yeah,
To place.
they're about $1 million a megawatt hour. But I'd have to do some more research and talking to people about them. But from the initial talks that I've had with people, you could probably, the payoff is 5 years maybe,
Right.
considering how much we're going to have to pay into the open market, that you'll be able to pay for these units in 5 to 7 years,
How big are these
which is
units?
insane. 2 megawatts.
I mean, how big?
Oh, physically, tractor trailer size.
Tractor trailer. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're basically. I'm trying to think of the megawatts that the several offices used to use for the telephone company. They used to have huge gas turbines in the large offices. Probably a megawatt, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
To all the power they had to run. It's something to think about. Really
Mhm.
is, especially going forward.
The only problem with things like that is permitting. It's permitting through the town, through the state, air permits, DEP, things like that.
What
So
about maintenance?
they have O&M contracts that you sign with
Mhm.
companies that'll come in and maintain them. They're basically hands off. I mean, there's just when they're called to go on,
Mhm.
you flip them on, they run. I mean, it's not a high maintenance unit.
be one on, one off, or both on all the time?
Depending on the circumstance,
Depending on
could be both on.
Yeah,
In the middle of July,
yeah.
when our load is really ramping up,
Mhm.
we probably have both of them on.
I think it's worth thinking about.
hmm I mean, we have enough land down
Yeah,
at the Daniels Road sub that we could,
yeah.
probably site them there. But it's just something that, I've been talking to a couple of different people about, and we'll see where it goes. But it's
Things are
interesting.
changing.
Yes, they are.
Well, I think, we have to start thinking a little bit differently about energy.
We do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all started with deregulation.
Yeah,
It's basically right where you can lay the blame, I guess,
Yeah.
when it
Yeah.
started getting,
I think also getting the people to think about LEDs and changing and bringing the wattage down in usage, to get this, right now, I know they're expensive to swap over.
Mhm.
But I think, try to get that on board to get people to see the cost benefits in their houses of LEDs.
oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I've talked about it before here, and, I've changed over. And I'm, every month I've been monitoring my light bills and, to see if I've been, the cost has been going down. But I mean, you take a 60-watt light bulb, and then these new LED, these new Philips, small ones, and they're like, I think it's like 11 watts, I
Mm.
think, compared to a 60-watt. So you can make significant savings.
Mhm.
But I think that's something we need to talk to the people about.
Right. Yeah, we had talked before, I think it was the last meeting, about actually offering them for sale
Mm-hmm.
at the office. I just haven't got to the point where I've actually asked suppliers if they're available and what the prices are yet, so.
I'm really surprised at the light they throw off. I
Mhm.
really am.
Oh, it's definitely a much better light than a compact fluorescent.
The hard part is when you go in to buy them is, white, soft
yeah.
white, and then there's a soft white.
They make an incandescent too. Incandescent color, not lamp. but-
It's kind of confusing, so I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
mean-
it's almost like we'll have to have a display in the lobby.
because
just as-
there's one that you put in, for a lampshade, then there's another one you put up for a light fixture because of the, you have a different color in a different room,
Mhm.
depending on, color schemes and everything else. It's not like, the old light bulbs. They do
Came in-
look different. I mean, my wife's watching, she's going, put one in the kitchen, she goes, get that out of here.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the color that you go after, so it took me a couple of tries there to pacify the kitchen.
I did that, and my wife did the same thing when I put in the first compact fluorescents, because they were only offered in one color.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had to agree with her, they were terrible.
Yeah.
So finally they started getting smart and then changing the color temperatures on them. So I finally found some that were suitable, not necessarily fully accepted, but suitable.
Mhm.
So I think
Okay.
that's what we need to think about too. I think it's a good idea, Dan, talk about us, if we do a display.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Sure,
Sounds good.
that's all I had.
And LEDs are coming into their own. The price is coming down some.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the other ones, the Philips the other day.
Those
and
Philips,
I
bought
actually
a
picked
couple.
up a couple of them and put them in a couple of lamps, and they do a great job. They really do.
And then, each, like I said, there's a light bulb for a fixture,
Mhm.
a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you
it's
gotta,
gonna take us a while to get used to these.
Yeah, recessed lights, you can get the flood types and
Right.
things like that, so.
Mhm. So, make a
And they're
difference.
dimmable.
Yes, they finally got to that point, which
Yeah.
is good. Okay. Is there anything else?
Something else from me?
Well, I guess we can go to item number 7. Adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned, and good night, folks.